Hello and welcome to today's video. This time we'll be taking a look through some Peregrine paperbacks. Now, Peregrine was like an academic part of the Penguin publishing empire, and this time I've pulled out about half of them for us to have a look through, clean up and get looking as good as possible. So sit back, relax and let's get to it. Okay then, so here is the first one, and Peregrine itself, you don't often really sort of hear much about them, and the fact that they're academic, it's almost like it's like a posh Pelican book, if that makes sense, you know. But they're B format for starters. They're not A format, so they're larger format, and they were quite expensive when the books were published. Like this one here, 10 shillings and sixpence, which is quite a bit, isn't it? Now, this one's actually got a little ripple on the back, but it has. You can see that telltale date there from Alan, the original owner of this collection of Peregrines. I had a handful, and I mean maybe about 4 Peregrines in total. And the run was a bit sporadic. It wasn't like they published like loads of books every single month. It was maybe one a month. It really was quite sporadic, and there was a bit of a lull. Then the series came back with a slightly more updated sort of look to it. But it's never a series I've ever actively tried to track down. They don't really sell for a lot, but some of the subjects are quite interesting. Lots of literature and things like that. So this one here, published in Peregrine 1967. As I said, some of these are re-releases or updates of old Pelican books. That one, you see the Peregrine on the spine there. Y was the prefix, and that's Y70. Now, these Peregrines are printed on better quality paper. The books are sewn, they're not glued spines, so that makes them more rigid. That's why they're a little bit more expensive. And they've got glossy covers, which means we can actually give these a bit of a polish at the end. So I've split this collection into 2. I've got one wedge to do today, and I've got another wedge that I'll do in a few weeks' time to get the whole collection complete. This, by the look of it, this is just as they've come off the shelf in the studio here. This looks like the slightly more modern half of it, but as I said, it's as they come. Now this is quite interesting. Look at this, is ISBN. This is a later one. D.H. Lawrence, a selection from Phoenix, and really, really heavy. 22 shillings or £1.10. Picked up in 1988. This was first published as a Peregrine in 1971. There we are. So it had a £2 reduced to £1.50. So as I say, we're going to get through this particular lot, which is about half the Peregrines, and it'll be added to the rotation, and we'll do the second half in like a month's time or something like that as we sort of get to them. I have now, as you may have seen last week, I have now finished the Collins White Circle. We just had those westerns to do at the end, and they were really, really nice. I really enjoyed going through those ones. And I was amazed to find I wasn't that short. I was only 5 or 6 westerns short of having the whole run, which was amazing. I didn't realise I was that close to the set, which was lovely. As I said, with these ones, because they've got the nice glossy covers, we will be able to give them a polish. I don't suspect we'll have to do any sort of gluing or anything, but of course we will need to give them all a brush. And I wonder if we see any sort of titles that we sort of recognise. So this is actually an early one, number 12, on Milton, and this was more, the early ones had these sort of banding at the front, these sort of stripes. And as I said, I've picked up some. I picked up a few off places like eBay for like less than £1 each, really cheap. So they are not an expensive run to collect, but at the same time, it's quite niche in the world of Penguin. It's one of their lesser known offshoots. I believe I may have like a little catalogue, like a tiny little 4-page thing which launched the series in my collection somewhere, which once I've sorted them out, because there will be a handful of doubles in this little lot, I shall do like a little dedicated overview of the series, and then these are going to get packed away into storage because I haven't got the room to have these out in the collection. They're going to need to be stored away. There we are. Shakespeare and Elizabethan Poetry, number 48. And they are for academics and students studying the particular subject. That is who they were written for. And, you know, they were around for a while, like a decade. This imprint was around. You can certainly see the good quality paper that's mentioned. You know, they have made an effort there to get these books looking nice. Number 72. Just feel a little bit of muck on the back there. So these will benefit definitely from having the polish on them, which will be the first time in a while we've actually had some more modern books that we can actually polish, because we've been doing so much real vintage pre-war where the books had like buff covers. We can't put any polish near those at all. I do always put my more recent vintage pickups, I clean those about once every month or so over on my main channel. So if you've not checked out my latest cleaning video over there, it's obviously a variety of stuff. It's not like this, which is all just the one publisher or series even. This is number 15. No Alan Mark in this one. 20p in there. So I've still got 100, looking ahead, I've still got 100 main series Penguin to do. And then we'll be moving on to the 1970s Penguins, of which, well, I don't know how many is there. There's probably best part of 500, maybe a bit more, of 70s Penguins just to go through. Which is fine. Y38, this is absolutely mint, look at that. Kenneth Clark, Ruskin Today. That's really, really nice, that. And in fact, these are going to clean up beautifully, I think, once they've had that polish. They're going to, and the brush, of course, they're going to really clean up to be quite nice. But as I said, because of slight time constraints, I'm not going to do the whole lot in one video. I'm going to split it into two, because I have quite a bit on at the moment, and I haven't quite got time to do like an epic length one today. But I will do, as I've split the Peregrines into two parts, so I'll be okay for today. Peter Coveney, The Image of Childhood, number 62 this is. Alan bought this on the 6th of January 1973 in Cirencester. Yeah, very nice. Well, this is a huge one, but it's later, it's ISBN. It sort of almost feels 80s in a way. Bit of muck on the bottom there, I don't know what that was. Yeah, £2.95. It's even got a receipt in it. So what can we decipher from that? Thank you, call again. Little 150 there, but I'd like to know when this is published. It's late 70s, early 80s, isn't it? Published in Peregrine 1979. There we are. So we were pretty on the nose there, weren't we? So Alan bought it for 150, which was half cover price, which isn't bad. Savage War of Peace, Algeria, 54 to 62. I know nothing about that particular conflict. Huge book. We won't need to keep the receipt. Edgar Wind, Pagan Mysteries in the Renaissance. Wow. 25 shillings. Wow, these were not cheap, were they? Revised and enlarged edition. So I wonder if it was revised from a Pelican. We'll have a look in a minute. Because this would be the sort of thing that Pelican would publish. Being the publisher that they were. Oh, bye. Published by Faber and Faber in 58 and reprinted in 1960. This enlarged and revised edition published by Penguin in Peregrine in 67. So it wasn't originally a Pelican, this was a Faber book. Interestingly. Now, Faber is a great publisher. What a fantastic list. Right back to their early days. And their books are beautifully designed. And I've seen some stuff from the Faber archive, and it really is terrific. I really do like their stuff. Right, Peregrine number 5. Classical and romantic. The background of English literature. See, that's the sort of thing I'd be fairly interested in reading that. But there you go. Who's got the time to read it all, eh? But I suppose if you were studying the subject, this would be your book, wouldn't it? £25p. Lovely. Albert Camus, look at that, the Rebel. So that's a nice one, isn't it? That is really nice. Yeah, these have been sat on my shelf for about a month here in the studio till I've got round to doing them. 1962, quite an early one this, yeah, number 7. Yeah, look at that, that's quite nice, that is quite nice. And look, we almost missed it. This one's got a bit of the telltale sellotape that Alan would sometimes put on the bottom spine of his books if there was a little, bit of the spine coming away. So we caught that one just in the nick of time. Aubrey's Brief Lives, number 11 here, Peregrine 11. It's an interesting jacket. 23rd of March, 74 in Hay. So assume that's Hay on Y. G.A. Stallard, 1965, 50p. That's what it says. Oh, look at that. A little bit more writing inside there. It says 1949 and 1962. I think that refers to 1962 when Penguin first published it, and 1949 when perhaps the first edition came out. Why that's like that, I do not know. It's got a bit of a yellowing spine. That's probably cigarette nicotine staining, that, I would think. So might be able to get some of that off, might be able to, but they should be really nice and white. I mean, I'm trying to find a really nice white spine, but they are a bit of a mixture. Right, number 20, The Great Tradition. Levis again. Yeah, very nice. Jane Austen's novels, A Study in Structure. Once again, quite interesting. There's a little bit of, like, that's an old sticker mark there. That will come off with some, and on the back, with some polish. So this one's clearly a bit of a used copy, but not, still quite collectible. There we are, a little 50p inside. Lovely. 17th century background. Number 3, this is. Okay, that's fine. The Fiction of Henry James, A Reader's Guide. Number 77. 16 shillings or 80p. £35p inside. Number 77 that was. Waterloo to Peterloo. R.J. White. It's number 76. So this was picked up 16th of August 1974 in Highgate. (1963) originally. Right, Thomas More, number 34. Books are really heavy when I'm holding them up with the one finger there. While I rub these dates out, you can tell that the books are really printed on super high quality paper. Built to last, these, I tell you. Built to last. And they've all stood the test of time, these. I've got to admit, I haven't really seen any tatty peregrines. Although you would imagine that if they were designed for students, that they would come in for a bit of a battering, you know? I would think that. Right, The World of the Shining Prince, Court Life in Ancient Japan, number 83. Certainly a real mixture of subjects, isn't it? I think they got more variety towards the end of the run, from what I understand. Originally, there was very much literary focused early on. Richard Walheim, number 79, this is. This one seems as if it's got like some storage cobwebs on the edges here. I don't think that's from me, because I'm pretty confident I've not got any bugs or spiders in my studio here, but it is a little bit dusty. I'm not saying my studio is clear of dust, because when I'm doing these cleaning videos, it's creating dust, isn't it? But I do, give it a bit of a clean, the studio, the floor and the shelves and stuff, once every few months, simply because it would get really tatty else, Right, The Growth and Structure of Elizabethan Comedy. Yeah, these glossy covers, they should really clean up quite nicely, Yeah, there we are. Very nice. The Growth of Political Stability in England, 1675 to 1725. Oh, it's like a mastermind subject, isn't it? And what's your specialist subject? Right, no information in that, but there was looks like a bit of newspaper I flashed up there in front of me. There we are. What's this? The housing problem. That must have been what they tore it out for. Let's see when this book dates from. It's Peregrine 82, so it'll be towards the tail end of the 60s. Yeah, published in Peregrine 1969. There we are. Okay. The Origins of Love and Hate. Yeah, quite an interesting mix of titles, you could say, in the Peregrine list. Not your regular stuff. And I don't know how complete my collection's going to be. As I said, I had a half a dozen or so before I bought Alan's collection, so I'm going to be reasonably complete. But the first 100 go from 62 up to the early 70s, or maybe even the late 70s in ISBN times. So I'll only be interested in the I'm not too fussed about the posted numerical ones. I'll keep the ISBN ones that I've got to keep them with the collection, but I won't try and pursue ones that I'm missing. Now this one, feels like it's been laminated now. Is that how it came, or has someone put it on? No, this is amateur lamination has been put on that one for number 54. So they've looked after the book. I shouldn't be surprised really that these books got laminated, even though they're very well made, because they were used as study aids, weren't they? People did study them. So I don't have many books with vintage sort of laminate on, but the ones that I have, you know, the books themselves tend to be all right, but I would always prefer one without a lamination if the opportunity presented itself. But I'll be more than happy to keep this one because it's pretty nice. It's pretty, apart from the spine, it's a pretty nice job that they've done on it, so we won't be too disappointed with that. Now this one's got some tape on, number 24. Man, Morals and Society. There we are, but that tape comes off really easily, but we are going to need to get some polish, and once again, that to me strikes of nicotine staining, you know. Historically, which was a real issue. The further back you go, you don't just get the cigarette staining, you also get smoke damage from open fires, which a lot of people had on the spines, you know. They kept their books in the front room or in the living room where they had an open coal fire, and the books themselves would end up getting smoky spines, as they call it. So you do see that. That is definitely a phenomenon. Ugh. Daily life in ancient Rome. Now, that's a really interesting subject, I bet. 10th of August 79 in Hay. I don't think Alan collected much into the 80s, or if he did, he didn't write his dates on it. I think it was very much for 10 years in the 1970s when he picked up most of his collection. There we are. Quite a stubborn ATP there. This is number 23. Interested to know the date on this. 1962, that one. Yeah, I bet that's really interesting. It's a shame it's not illustrated, because that's the sort of book that would benefit from that, I reckon. Cross Currents in English Literature of the 17th Century. Wow. Why 58? £50p, it says, out of print. Well, these are obviously all out of print, although there may be modern editions of some of these books. I wouldn't be surprised if there was. There we are. Oh, look. Stephen Pickles, New College, Oxford. What became of Stephen Pickles? Answers on a postcard, please. Right, this is a much more modern one. Much more modern. Not such great quality paper. When was this published? Looks early 80s to me. 1978. So not quite 80s. 1978. It was picked up 27th of the 9th, 1980 in Cheltenham. So at the time, the book was only a couple of years old. You know, I mean, did he get it second hand? I mean, it's hard to tell, isn't it? I can't imagine that Alan was buying these brand new off the shelf. I just can't picture it, but with some of the fiction choices in the collection, I can sort of believe it, you know. Right, Shakespeare's history plays. This has also got some tape at the top. Thankfully, the tape that Alan put on wasn't of a particularly high quality, so it does come off really, really easily, which is lucky for us all these years later, you know, because he bought this, look, 29th of September 1973 in Cirencester, and we're here 52 years later taking his sellotape off. So you could say, what was the point of putting it on? But on some of the books that he's had, there was an obvious point because the spine was getting damaged and coming away. But on this one, you know, I can't really see the point of it, you know. But there you go. We shan't complain, because it won't do us any good at all. Right, Essays in Sociology, Y71, and Social Philosophy. The one striking thing about these books is how heavy they weigh. So there's no way they're going up into my loft in the main collection. These won't actually get shelved for a couple of years until I've got my actual library built. And that is going to take a couple of years. We've got to find a house first to buy, then get the library built, purpose built from floor to ceiling. It's not going to be a quick job, but it will be very much an enjoyable job, that I can tell you for sure. London life in the 18th century. Once again, I reckon quite an interesting subject. Y57. Absolutely massive book. It weighs a ton. They weigh like hardbacks, these. $1966. So apart from the grubby spine, which once again is a little bit of cigarette damage on that, which should come off in a minute, that's a really nice copy. Right, Y61, The Use of Imagination. Okay. 23rd of the 10th, 73, Bristol. That's nice. The 18th century background, Basil Wiley. Get a bit of a creased back cover, this one. £30p on the inside, front cover. Yeah, that's okay. Another recent one by the look of it, The Revolution on Trial, ISBN £3.95. Also, this one has been laminated. So, some vintage lamination from 1978. You don't really hear of people laminating their books these days. I don't even think students bother with it. My son is a student now at university. He's doing a degree, and he certainly doesn't laminate any of his books. Not that they use many anymore, it's all online, or most of it's online. Anthony Talbot. So when's this then? 1978. This one. Yeah, hardly even mentions Peregrine except with the logo there. This one's in hardback, look. And this is HY. Does that mean hardback Peregrine? I reckon it probably does. 25 shillings for this hardback edition. Very cool. Bit of an anomaly. But you can imagine some of these books were probably, Penguin were requested to produce them in hardback in a more permanent form, you know? Is it just boards? Yeah. It's just boards on that one. 60p. There we are. Yeah, a little bit of cover wear required in the polishing side of things. What does it say? Reissued, first published in Pelican 1953, reissued in Peregrine in 1969. So this was an old Pelican that got re-released in hardback in 1969. Very interesting. A Critical History of English Poetry, number 18. And we are just 5 to go, and that'll be approximately half of the Peregrines done. We're going to stop going through them then. I'm going to actually clean all the edges, and then I'm going to give them all polish, because that is what these need. And this will be Peregrine Books Part 1. And I will do another follow-up on these, as I said, in about a month's time. We've got some other things on the horizon. We've got more guild books to sort out, of course. Still going through those. And all those guild services editions to sort out. That's going to take some time. Another ISBN one. Wraparound jacket on that. Social history. Yeah, so still got lots of guild to go through of a vintage style, and I've still got Hutchinson books, Wartime Hutchinson, to sort out from that collection from last December. Still more services editions within that lot to go through and catalogue, and that's a really very nice and very delicate paperbacks to clean up. So I'm looking forward to going through those. And then lots and lots of 70s Penguin. And that's really before I go back and do some of my other collection, because I haven't done any bagging in a long time. Partly because the bags themselves, coming from China, have got very scarce. And I do need quite a good wedge of bags to restock, really. So I'm seeing book dealer Dorset Bob in a couple of weeks' time, and he was going to try and import some himself from China directly, not through America, to see how, if he could get them slightly cheaper and see what the quality of them was like. So I'll keep you posted on that. Now, this one is misprinted. Look at this, look. You get that sometimes where it would flap over. Look, it's not cut right. So what I think that some people do, they would cut it back to size, but it's just been folded in like that. And it's just a little anomaly that would happen at the printers. And this book appears to be pretty much unread, so I'd imagine that's exactly how it got published, and it's just a little printing error. These things happen for number 75. Drama from Ibsen to Eliot, number 46. Lovely. And then the last one we're going to clean up internally and then crack on with the external is this one, which is number 22, Selected Prose of T.S. Eliot. It's a nice one. 10th of August 1973 in Hastings. There we are. Right, next job then, I'm going to give them all a brush down. Okay, so here we go. Now, thankfully, these books are of an age where they're not going to be horrifically dusty. In fact, on the whole, they're going to be quite clean. It's more the polishing where we're going to really sort of make some impact. So you can see, look, there's not a lot of dust on there. It really is, they've been kept in a nice environment, these ones. But I'm still going to dust them all the same, simply because I like to just put the books through the same sort of process. Some are obviously worse than others, but on the whole, these are very, very nice condition books and real collector's copies, really. There's not a lot to worry about dust-wise with these. This one's a little bit more tanned. Start a second pile. So what I do with the books that I've already cleaned, the ones which aren't in storage, where they don't get dusty, is I do run the hoover just along them once every sort of 6 months or so. I go up into the collection, into the loft, or wherever the books are in the house, and I use a little cordless hoover, like the hand part of it, and I've got like, basically it's a small like little bit of brush on the end, and I can just do all the top edges, and it just, you know, takes off any sort of loose dust that's just sort of settled on it since the books have been cleaned. It's not as good as, you know, what we're doing now, but it just stops them getting any worse, you know what I mean? But it's inevitable that books over time, you know, when they're on the shelf, they're going to get dusty. It's inevitable in whatever environment they're really stored in, you know. There's no sort of way around that. Now, interestingly, these two here are much larger format. They're even bigger than the B format ones, which this is a traditional B format. Interesting. Now here's the hardback, so we'll just go gently on the top there. Leave that one up there. Right, we'll let the dust settle, and then the all-important polishing job, which will be quite important on these ones, I feel. They're going to come up quite nicely with a bit of Mr. Sheen. Right, here we go then. So I've got my trusty Mr. Sheen. I've got my very soft cloth, and these ones we can actually be quite cheeky, and we can spray them directly on, and we'll impregnate the cloth as we go along. This one a little bit harder to pick up any sort of signs of muck, but I can be rest assured that they are there, or it is there. The black backs, of course, will be the ones that really show up where we've cleaned them. And we won't need to spray every book, but we'll just periodically spray them and see how we get on, I think. but some books will obviously be worse than others, I reckon. And I sometimes think it's quite hard to tell on film, watching these videos, but when you're up close, you can really see the difference that the polishing makes on these books overall. It really does make a difference. Because we're taking off, in effect, 60 years worth of handling and fingerprints and things like that. There we are. Yeah, lovely. These are coming up really nice, which is exactly what I was hoping for. And I'm glad I have stuck to just trying to do half of these today, and we'll do the other half in the future, in like a month's time or something, simply because it would have been too much to do in one vid, because we've got this much again to do. And although they didn't require any sort of gluing, not a single one of these, because they're so well made, they have still required quite a bit of careful cleaning, which is absolutely fine. That one needed quite a bit of work. And this is the one that was laminated, so we don't need to put anything extra on this. The lamination has done a very good job and kept it extremely clean. Maybe a little bit more grubby on the back than the front, to be honest. Weirdly, that was the case. But that's okay. Lovely, these are coming up nicely. In fact, better than expected. The collection was actually pretty high quality in actual fact, so really pleased with these. It's a good run. So any that I'm missing, I need to make sure that I keep the standards really high, and that's often tricky because although these Peregrines don't sell for much, it's not like they're out there on every dealer's list. Often they're not. A lot of collectors don't even touch them. A bit like pelicans, they're not regarded in the collecting circles. Sometimes when you get a collection like this, in a way you're spoiled, because you find other ones, you might find the ones that you're missing and they're just not up to scratch condition wise. This one's got quite a darkened spine, so I'm giving it a bit of extra polish. Yeah, it didn't come up with the telltale nicotine stains, that one. Some of them I've had have been horrific, really, really awful. They literally come up horrible yellow. So maybe that was just general muck. So that's an example of a really quite nice spine, very, very bright for number 23. That's a pretty nice copy of that one. This one's also got a little bit of staining. Nothing serious, of course. We'll do that back. We'll do that spine in a minute, because it's really, really yellow. Of course, it could be sun damage. Look at that. See if we can lighten it at all. Use a fresh bit of cloth. I think it's a little bit better, but it's still a bit ugh. But there you are. Yeah, it wasn't. I think that must be sun damage, rather than anything else. Yeah, I think it must be, where it's like faded somehow. This is another one with a very sort of beat up sun spine rather. I think it's sand, but it's definitely yellowed. So we'll just see what we can do. That's what we can do, of course. Yes, lightened it up a little bit, but certainly not great, that particular spine. This is one of the more recent ones. Relatively recent, a mere 45 years old, this one. Of course, some will need a little bit more attention than others. Start a fresh poem. Yeah, that looks quite an interesting one. A selection of D.H. Lawrence. Very interesting. Beautiful copy of it as well. Yeah, when they've got those black covers, they do come up very nicely. This is another one which is in nice looking shape. The little polish just enhances it. In my humble opinion. Again, a bit of a spotty spine on this one, for whatever reason. And we are rapidly approaching the 1 hour mark on this video, which I thought it probably would be. So I definitely didn't want to do a video which was over 2 hours if I did the whole lot. So as I said, we've got this much again to do in a future vid, where we'll do the other ones. Basically, the other half. I've split the collection in two, so that's good. I'm pleased I've got these though, because as I said, it's not an easy run to try and piece together without getting lucky and getting a nice wedge in one hit, which I did. So some people just aren't even aware of them, that they're even part of the Penguin story, really. I don't think there's been a lot written about the Peregrines, in all honesty. So I think I've got a little promotional booklet when the series was announced, which is basically just a 4-page pamphlet. There's not a lot to it. So I think I've got that as part of the collection somewhere. But beyond that, it sort of got released without a massive fanfare, I don't think. And it became what it became, very much what you see on The title lists nothing extraordinary, just, you know, decent academic books for students, really, and or academics, people studying that particular subject. The only one we've seen with like a name and address in was for Oxford College, so that gives us an idea of the sort of market it was being aimed at, I suppose. Academics and universities, you know. Another one of those more modern, bigger books. Oh, yeah, the Algeria War. We'll do that spine in a minute, I think. Yeah, particularly yellow spine, that one. So I'll put some polish straight on and then see if we can just tackle it as is. Hopefully it'll lighten it a little bit. Yeah, I think it's, look at that. You see that yellow is definitely nicotine. So that one was in the library of a smoker at some point, you know. So look at it, it really stands out, that yellow there. Amazing, isn't it? So we've lightened it up a little bit, but in all honesty, it won't get any better than that. And look at that, which is a bit more of a regular spine. But that bit of yellow there really stood out on the cloth. We use a different bit of cloth now on this one. Still got a stack of these to get through, and then we'll be done for today, which is absolutely fine. It's a decent length video. I have got a week's holiday coming up where I won't actually be in the country. But I'm hoping that it doesn't interfere with my book cleaning, because I'm reasonably ahead, but I obviously have the other channel to consider as well. So we'll see. But if you do see a missing week, don't panic. It's only because I've been on holiday and not had a chance to come back and film a bit more. The next video in the sequence. But it will happen. Yeah, lots of muck come off that. Right, I'm now going to grab the last pile. So I've got about a dozen books. Now this is that hardback. I'm not going to put any additional polish on. Just going to give it the once over. There we are. move those out of the way so we can start our final pile. So as always, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, I do hope you are subscribed to the channel, and if not, please hit that subscribe button. It costs nothing, but it does help the channel grow, albeit slowly. I'm not looking for tens of thousands of subscribers here. I recognise it's a little niche, but that's all good. I don't mind at all. If you are so obliged, by all means leave a comment. I always reply. Maybe not immediately, but I do reply. I do check the channel out once or twice a week. If you want to really support my efforts over on my main channel, there is the opportunity to become a YouTube channel member, where you do get to see an exclusive video each week. You can join the channel at the moment to get full access to my key videos early, sales videos, and a members only video from as little as £1 or $1. So that would obviously really help me out. You can also support me over on Patreon at patreon.com/Jules Barretts. There's a few options to help the channel out. I have got merchandise now at tpublic.com/Jules Barretts, and a few classic paperback designs and things. So they are available as well. I have had some people say, well, what are you going to do when you run out of books? Believe me, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, because apart from what we've got just here with me in the studio and a little bit inside that's waiting to be cleaned and polished, and a lot of it needs to be bagged, of course, there are at least 2 collections on the horizon of a large variety that I may end up buying. In which case, that's going to give me lots and lots of work. So fear not, there's plenty on the horizon still to come. Last few books now. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this one. Certainly something a bit different. As I said, we're going to do the whole thing again in a month's time with the rest of the collection. Certainly I've enjoyed looking through these. Since I got them, I've not had a chance to look at them properly, so I think they are a great read. Certainly a good collection. And I'm liking what I've got. We never came across the first one, so that must be in the next video. And these were the two which were ever so slightly larger than B format, which was unusual. I wasn't expecting that. But that's how it goes. And the last one. So, thanks once again for watching today. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I will see you again in 7 days' time with another video. Not quite sure what it's going to be. Probably the next step in the guild books, the wartime guild books. So, I'll see you then. Bye.